Thank you for joining. I'm Malcolm from the Public Sector Innovation Lab in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I want to just share with you some of my experience over the last 7 years in starting and building the Public Sector Innovation Lab. I'm speaking from the perspective of a practitioner, of a line manager, of a manager, of a leader, also a project manager, and now more lately heading up the Innovation Lab and coming through my experience and what I've learned over the past couple of years. So I want to share that with you. Please feel free to put questions into the chat. Please feel free to let me know if there's anything I haven't got quite right, and happy to discuss that and then to pick up any questions that you have at the end. This is my experience. I'm sharing with you my view of the world. People will have different views, so I just want to let you know what has been my experience, because setting up an innovation lab from scratch has been challenging. It has been interesting. It has been very exciting. It's been very fulfilling, but it hasn't been without its challenges and big lessons learned over these years. I'll pay tribute to some people as we go, not only the excellent team of people I have, but of people that we have collaborated with over the time, and hopefully mention some of those as we go. So where do we start? Well, I'm going to start with just the very basics, and we look at the, just here we are, the Innovation Lab. My point on this slide is fairly straightforward. I've got a great team of people. I've got 12 of us in the lab. I've got 3 service designers. I have 3 behavioral scientists. I have a systems modeler. I have a couple of people who specialize in strategic insight. And they're all brilliant people coming from different backgrounds, and they're all equally energized and motivated like I am. So it's great to have great people around you. I don't let on, but I'm just like their uncle, and they're all brilliant, and they're all a lot more capable than me, but I never tell them that. I just hope that I can continue to bluff my way. So they're great people. Good to have a good team. And it's also great to have methodology. I've mentioned those to you. Systems modeling and behavioral science, strategic insight, and of course, in the context of this conference, service design. Good too to have a good pipeline of demand, which we do have. A lot of interest in what we're doing, a lot of work that we could still do, and it's good to be in demand. And it's also good to have funding to do this, and a very interesting funding model that we have, where we're allowed to charge the people that we do projects for, recoup that money, and then reinvest that in buying new staff. So good funding models. Good to have these components together. I have a point at the end of this, by the way. This isn't an advertisement for the lab as such. So, and then it's good to have definitions, and well, we're all good at that when we're setting up new business ventures, setting up new teams, new branches, and we're all good at getting the buzzwords, and this is ours. I'll just read the red words, not expecting it to absorb it or to interpret it, but our aim is to improve public services and respond to challenges where effective service provision for the public has proved most difficult. And that's really where we want to help, where despite all the investment, despite all the initiatives, we want to help in the public sector where change is needed, but all the effort that has been put into it has been unsuccessful or has had limited success. And that's what we aim to do, to help, to come alongside leaders. We'll see some of those buzzwords in the next slide. Again, we want, this is more of our ambition, and we will state things and it sounds wonderful, and we can construct all these phrases, and we mean them, to be a centre of innovation excellence, where service users are at the heart of what we do. And of course, you would expect me to be saying that on the service design conference, and obviously that is central to what we do. That is part of our mantra. And then the second bullet point in red there, to support public sector leaders, and so forth. So we're here to support and to help achieve better services and better outcomes against the programme for government that's relevant in Northern Ireland. So we have ambition. But the interesting thing is, how do you succeed? Those slides that I have set out previously are typical of any body or organization that is created or set up to achieve a result. And you can have all those things, and we have them, but how can we actually succeed at what we do? And that's the purpose of my talk today, is not to reveal something wonderfully new to you. What I'm going to be saying is it'll all resonate with you, because if you've been like me in the public sector for a long period of time, it will resonate within you. You have heard it before, but I've just in my head collected all these things that I'm going to take you through in a moment or two. And they appeal to me as this ecosystem. So my proposition to you today is that, well, you can have all of those organizational things and great sponsorship and funding, and you can have great mission statements and great team. How can you actually succeed in the public sector at service design or at behavioral science? And what are the enabling things that are needed for success? I want to suggest to you that there's a collection of things that are vital to your success as a service designer, and I'm going to step you through them in a moment or two. Now, before I do that, I'm going to show you a number of publications that have been very influential for me. And I'm going to say why, but just do it briefly. And I present them to you for you to maybe think about reading them for yourself and seeing what lessons and what you can learn from them. Now, interestingly, the first is this book by Margaret Hodge, and she was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee in the past. And this book is a collection of her observations of difficulties and challenges that she encountered when she was chair of that committee. And it's full of wonderful anecdotes, and it's full of things that she criticizes and lessons that she draws from what she saw and what she heard. And I've read that book, and it inspired me because it resonated very strongly with me as I read all the difficulties and the problems and the reasons why things were not successful or why they didn't deliver what they were intended to. And that's just part of my learning here. I can connect my thinking to this book and some of the things that I read in it because it resonated with me. I would encourage you, if you are a service designer, if you're leading service designers, or if you're a public sector manager and you want to improve things, you want to get innovation, you want to get better services, I would encourage you maybe just to have a read at the book, because there are big lessons in it. And I think some of them will resonate later on when I go through the detail of my presentation. So that's one of the things that influenced me. There'll be other books, and there's other great writers that you could turn to, but I just want to mention that in passing. And then after that, I want to refer to these two publications. They're from the Royal Society for Art, and both of the publications involved Rowan Conway, who writes extensively and is now at the University College London, and she leads on new projects and mission-orientated innovation. Now, these two documents are really worth a read. If you're a public sector manager, if you're leading change, if you're a service designer, I really encourage you, I strongly encourage you just to read these two articles. They're not long, they're a fascinating read. And Rowan and the other people who co-authored these documents have looked and have written down a couple of things. Now, there are two things I want to mention from these documents, because again, they influenced heavily my thinking, and they echoed and resonated with what I was saying in leading the Innovation Lab. The first thing that comes out of these two documents is the concept of the public entrepreneur. Now, that really echoed with me, because in the documents, Rowan and the writers draw on extensive academic writings, and they pull it all down into this lovely idea that you and I as public servants can be legitimately entrepreneurial in our roles, even though we may not necessarily be termed entrepreneurs or innovators. In other words, if you are a public sector individual and you're ambitious and you're actually working in your world to improve things, then that is a very legitimate thing to do. And I took great encouragement from reading this and this language that she put on what has been my experience. And I reckon it'll echo with you, because you wouldn't be on this event unless you were interested in improving public services. And in your world where you are, there's a tremendous legitimacy for you as an individual to encourage you to be a public entrepreneur. Now, I'll not say any more about that. The articles are superb, and that's one thing that deeply resonated with me. Very confirming of, for every individual in public service who's working, doing their day job, but also working to improve things, being innovative, improving services, etc., etc. The second thing that comes through in the writings, and this really echoed with me, is she quotes research from the past and she brings it all down into the article, and she talks about the system's immune response to innovation. And I'll develop this a wee bit further down in my presentation, but that strongly echoed with me because, and I'll talk a bit more in detail about it, and we'll just maybe leave it to them, but that really echoed with me because the systems within which we operate are bureaucratic. They are very structured. There is a tremendous legitimacy about those structures and those controls that are in place. And they're there to protect the accounting officer and senior directors, so that those senior directors and the accounting officers can be assured as to the safety and the security of all the services and funds, etc., that they have to give an account for to Parliament. So those systems are there to protect, to ensure conformity, to ensure that everything is done according to the rules and the regulations. And that's all good, and that's all true, and that's all proper. But the thing that resonated with me that came from these articles is this, those same systems, they don't like variance from the norm. They're designed to ensure this conformity. So when a person is being innovative and wants to introduce change, they come up against the system. And the system's response is rather like our own physical response whenever we get an infection. There is the immune response, and the system's immune response says that's not right and we've got to stop it. So that comes all, and collecting all that together then is sort of the history of why I've come to the conclusion of this subject of the enabling ecosystem. So let's maybe come to that in a wee bit more detail. And again, happy to take questions. I'm not actually, I'm not sure I can see the Q&A box here, but anyway, we'll work on that in a minute. Please pop any questions in and let me and challenge me if you think I'm wrong. Okay, so get rid of that. So here we are, and this really goes to what's at the heart of my talk today. You see, I believe innovation and service design and all the lovely things that we want to do, they need to be viewed from as an organic process. They need to be able to evolve. If you want to get good solutions, yes, you apply methodology and you can have a logic to what you do, but to put it simply, good innovation, good service design needs to bring out the best results. And that requires this idea of it being almost an organic process. Yes, you have, but the system to the right-hand side of my picture here is highly organized and requires business cases and requires controls. So the challenge that you and I have in being service designers or behavioral scientist or whatever it is to get the best result, and to be allowed to be creative, and to allow solutions to evolve in a structured way using methodologies and so forth, and engaging with service users and all those wonderful things that we firmly believe in. But it is an organic process, but it has to operate in the public sector within the rules and the guidance and the business case requirements and so on and so forth. So my point here is that for you to be successful, you've got to be able to live in both worlds. In fact, if I was showing this on a big screen and it was behind me, I would actually stand in a position so you would be looking at me and I'm straddling the two lines, and I didn't mean to do that, so we'll just go back one. We're not going to go back one. Yeah, there we are. My job, particularly in the innovation lab, I see myself as straddling these two worlds, and I try to protect my folks from the system, but I also have to satisfy the system. So because that system doesn't like innovation formally, because it is constructed. Its immune response is that's a variation from the norm. So it's good to know these things, and the more you think about them, the better enabled you are to be successful. So we'll move on then. Let's come to my ecosystem, and here we go. If I can get to move, where are we? Oh, you can see I have this well practiced. So there we are. So this is my enabling ecosystem. The diagram is actually very, very formal, and it sort of contradicts my point about it being organic, but I couldn't get a better diagram. So this is the best way I have of just expressing this to you. And I see the enabling ecosystem as along the lines that I have set out here. These components within it. I want to say before I go any further that this is at a very high level, and that you could go down to a much more granular level and put more flesh on this whole idea and all of these different components, and you could widen it out. But this is my take on it. This is my current sense of it. But the enabling ecosystem has these components as I see it. Now, likely you can add to that, and I'd be happy for you to do that, and also for you to think that through for yourself, and to let me have any inspiration that you have about it. So let's go through them quickly together. We'll step through them at pace now. I see there's a question here, if I can look at it as we go. Okay, I'll come to that in a wee second. Question. Thank you, Jennifer, all the way from Glasgow. So we'll just close that momentarily. There we are. So I'll come back to that one. So let's talk about the personal aspect of this. And it's a fundamental part of this ecosystem that you understand yourself. And I just want to show you some initial ideas here. This is not all that you could put into this, but these are some of the things that I think are absolutely important that you and I understand about this ecosystem. So first of all, I am operating in this ecosystem. So what do I know about myself? How have I assessed myself? Am I competent? Am I capable? Am I comfortable in this ecosystem and wanting to be a successful innovator or public entrepreneur? So am I a public entrepreneur? There's a good question. Are you a public entrepreneur? Are you keen to improve things where you are, to be an effective service designer? Or maybe you're content being a manager, or simply managing the status quo and ensuring the efficiency and the outputs continue on time to the standard and all of that. And that's legitimate, but public entrepreneurship and service design take you further than that, and you have to be thinking about whether you're prepared to get into this, engage in this ecosystem in order to be innovative and creative and so forth. Which takes me to the bottom bubble here, and it's about staying power and ambition, because innovation and service design don't happen overnight, and your projects won't work overnight. And there's a lot of things that you've got to do in order for them to be successful. So you have to have staying power and stamina and commitment and passion. And I believe passion is an important word in this, and it's one that we use oftentimes in the Innovation Lab, because if you didn't have passion, you'll not be up for the game of working with this system that's trying to kill off your creativity. So you need to have passion, you need to have ambition, you need to want to improve things. And also to the left-hand side, this part of the ecosystem is about knowing yourself. Of three things. Are you contextually aware? Are you aware of the system? And are you aware of yourself if you want to be this successful entrepreneur in the ecosystem? And your biases. Well, now that's a very important thing for you and I to understand about ourselves. We are how we think today is the product of our upbringing, of our education, of the things that have encouraged us in our work, and those things that have disappointed us. Perhaps things going on in our personal life, perhaps things going on in society around us. We are deeply coloured, and we're very individualistic, and those biases can come out in this process. And the challenge there is to be aware of them and not to allow them to influence and to skew what you're doing in the wrong direction. So that's one of the components of the enabling ecosystem. You're the most important component, and I am. And am I able for it? Am I willing for it? And have I an understanding of the biases that could steer and skew the outcomes that I'm looking for? So that's the first test. Let's come to the second then, and this is political. The political environment, that's a picture of, by the way, of Parliament buildings. Stormont in East Belfast, and if you're ever in Belfast, you have to come and get the bus out to see this. It's probably one of the most wonderfully placed Parliament buildings in Europe, because it sits on a hill and there's a mile drive leading up to it. So I'm doing a bit of marketing for Belfast, by the way. I hope you don't mind that. It's wonderful to come and see it on a glorious day. It's a lovely walk up to the Parliament buildings. Anyway, what's the political world? We operate in a political environment. We operate in a liberal democracy. You and I, and those of us who are public servants, we are here to do the will of the people as through the elected representatives and the government of the day. So what we're wanting today to do as public sector innovators, as service designers, will often be coloured by the ministers that we work for or the councillors that we're responsible to. And the higher we are in the organisation, the more evident that will become. I have limited experience of working directly with ministers. There's others on the call probably have much closer experience than I have, but there are things that we need to be aware of as innovators. And I just want to talk about political ambition and also political timeframes, and go back to Margaret Hodge's book. I encourage you to read the chapter dealing with universal credit, and I'm not here to disparage colleagues who have worked on that. I worked on that project myself, but one of the things that really comes out of her analysis of that is that political ambition and political timeframes far outstripped the available resources and the skills and the technology that there was to deliver universal credit. So sometimes you will come up against ambition and timeframes in this world of innovation, and the closer you are to ministers, the more likely you are to be exposed to that, which may seem impossible to you. So there's a challenge there as a public sector leader, as a public sector innovator, as a service designer, in understanding the implications of that for you as you take forward your project. So that's something to be mindful of. Again, political ideology is an important thing to remember as well. And while the research that you're doing may suggest a particular outcome or a particular way to do something, the ideology of the party or the minister may cut across that. But we're not going into that in any more detail. That's suffice to say that that is a very important component of this enabling ecosystem, understanding yourself, understanding any political constraints or ambitions, and the more you understand those things, the better able you will be to be successful in your innovation. and in your service design. So let's come to my next one. I'm going the wrong way here. There, societal. Now, let's go to this, just the list of things. So this is one I think we significantly underestimate, and I often cite this as the example here, and you'll have seen it wherever you are in the world, and whatever part of the UK you're from, or Ireland, and it's public perception. And this emotionally charged idea, where your innovation, where all the metrics and all the research and all the wisdom says that is the solution, but the public will have a rat if you want to do it. Now, probably the best example I can use, and I'm not wanting to get into any particular departmental issues, but you take over provision of acute hospitals in a particular area, and there are too many and they're immensely expensive to run, and it would be far more effective and you get better services, better concentration of expertise if you were to reduce, say, from 3 to 2. But you, and all the science says that's the good thing to do, that's the proper thing to do. But the reality is, once you start going down that road, then you're going to hit massive public resistance to what you're doing. So there's that idea of understanding, yes, the figures stack up, the research says, but the reality is you need to bring the public with you. And of course, that's a massive task, and that's a major component of your ecosystem. And of course, when I think of the components of the ecosystem that I've showed you earlier, some of them will be more prominent than others, depending on where you are in the system and on the particular subject that you're dealing with. But it is something that you really need to have square in your head and an understanding of, because if you're going to be successful, you've got to know what lies ahead and what you're going to have to manage. Bearing in mind that innovation and service design are relatively easy to do in this regard, that you can come up with solutions, you can design new services, but as big a job and as massive a task is actually the implementation of them. So you're not only thinking about your design, you're thinking about the challenge of getting things implemented. And again, it's a complete spiral that you have to be aware of, and the ecosystem will inform you across the piece. So let's go on to the next one, and I'm going to come now, I'm going the wrong way, down the one way street there. So let's talk about the organization that you're currently operating and that you're part of, where you want to be a public entrepreneur, where you want to be a service designer, or where you currently are a service designer, or you're leading service designer. So what about the ecosystem? What are the organization that you're working in? So I call this the authorizing environment. This is the world that you need to get the authority from to do what it is you want to do. And you need to understand that. And I think the first question you're going to ask yourself is, how is innovation viewed in your world? And that's a nice wee thing just to sit down and contemplate. Maybe you have leaders who are really invested in improving services and getting better policies and implementing and achieving greater outcomes for the public. And they are keen and energetic, and they sponsor and espouse innovation, and they practice that. And that's a great world to live in if you're a service designer and an innovator and a public entrepreneur. How is innovation viewed? Sometimes we can be caught in organizations that are perhaps different to that, and they have limited risk appetite, and the leadership is not on for change. Back to my point earlier about the difference between a manager and a public entrepreneur. Perhaps the whole system that you currently operate in is really just about maintaining the status quo, on achieving the targets, and so on. And there's limited interest or ambition for improvement. So the question that you have then to ask yourself, can I be successful as a service designer in this environment? Am I a good fit for that? And that's one of those navel-gazing considerations that you do whenever you have a few minutes to yourself and you're sitting having a coffee and doing a big reflection on, am I in the right place, and can I contribute here, or do I need to move to something where the authorizing environment will allow me to be what I want to be, which is an effective public entrepreneur, an effective service designer, and I'll have the room and the support all around me and above me that'll let me do that. So that's part of your ecosystem, as part of my ecosystem. I'm glad to say that the directors and our Permanent Secretary and our Minister are all very much behind us on the Innovation Lab. In fact, the Innovation Lab was created in Belfast at the behest of one of the Minister of Finance at the time, and all the ministers since then have been very supportive of us. Now, it's a great environment to work in. But you may not be so fortunate, and again, are you a good fit there, or will your ambitions be best realized in a different place? Sorry, I'm not asking you to resign or anything like that, but those are important things. That's the ecosystem. So you want to be and deliver and improve, but does the organization around you and above you have the same ambition? So moving on then to financial, this is probably more standard stuff here. Just want to mention here a couple of things, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. So are you aware of the financial approval processes and the business case processes in your ecosystem? Is there budget for it? And you really have to have thought of all of those things through. Maybe you don't think that's your role, maybe you think that's for more senior people, but if you're the public entrepreneur, if you're the sole trading public entrepreneur in your business, if you're the sole trading service designer in your area, you will have to have an awareness of this. And it's akin to the piece earlier I was talking about, the organization. How does it see innovation? And then when it comes now to the financial side of that, will it spend? Will it invest in improved services? And can you, with your design, your new service that you design or you have ambition to design, can you make that stack up from a financial approvals perspective? Because that's all part of success, and that's all part of the ecosystem. And again, I say, if you haven't thought about those things, and we'll come to this in my wrap up, but these are where the wheels can come off, and so forth. And then I'm not going to touch on the other two there, but just briefly, are there alternative funding models? There's a Small Business Research Initiative, both here and in the UK, and that's ways of going externally and stimulating innovation and creativity outside the organisation, or in your design process and in the research that you're doing, can you partner with academia and get PhD students in, for example, to help with your research work? And there's other ways of funding your project and getting support for your project. And then and the business case perspective is looking more to how do you fund the new thing that you have created, and does it make economic sense from an appraisal perspective? Anyway, that's enough on finances, and we'll come now to going the wrong way again. I'm down the wrong way street. I'm still going down the wrong way street. I'll reverse out again, and we'll come to the operating environment. This is different from the organization. I want you to think very carefully about this one. Most of you will probably be very familiar with this, but this is the environment where your innovation needs to land and operate. So this is the front line, or whatever it is, the rubber hits the road. And you need to understand that. And I want to suggest this is one of the biggest challenges that you will have in your work as a service designer or as an innovator. It's actually understanding the world in which this is going to land, for two reasons. For this reason here, by engaging and involving the people who currently are on the front line, who I'll just illustrate this better on the next slide, and I'm going the wrong way again. I'll put my reverse in the reverse. Here we go. This I picked up this slide here, which really says it for us. This is the operating environment, and really, when you're building your new service, when you're doing your research, the point here is down here. It's the people on the front line, right at the coal face, as we call it, who really understand the current service provision and the problems with it. And it's likely that they also understand some of the solutions. So as a service designer, if you fail to engage these folks here, you're going to miss out on massive intelligence about the current system. You'll also miss out on their knowledge and their because they've seen it, they know the things that will work, and their ideas. And then thirdly, if you haven't involved them, you could find that you have to deal with some guerrilla tactics and opposition to you implementing what you want to do because of resistance on the ground. So the more you involve, the more engaged you are with people who are working in the front line in the world where you have got to get them to deliver your new system, your new service, the better that it will be. So that's, I'll just go back, if I can get it to go back, make sure I'm going back, no, wrong way. I need to get driving lessons after this. So that's the operating environment. This is where it's going to land. And then, so, and sum up, have I involved the people currently in the system to understand the dynamics of it? So, we'll just come then to almost the last slide, and we've seen that one again. And here we are, we're back around to the enabling ecosystem. I want to suggest to you, and again, I'm sorry, this does take us into this world of hierarchies and systems and processes, and I'm always talking like a gateway review. Some of you will be familiar with that language. A gateway review is a formal structure before large investment is made in projects, where you make sure everything's lined up and all the parameters are met. I'm almost taking that sort of a concept and bringing it into in a more softer way into your world as a public entrepreneur, and doing this sort of mini audit in your head, or an informal check within your head around the pieces of the pie here that I have drawn for you, and looking for the obstacles and the hurdles that may lie within those portions, and thinking about them before you get too far down the road, and having thought about them, use them to predict and to engage in advance, so that you don't meet them halfway into your project or 3/4 of the way into the project, and all of a sudden you meet this massive obstacle that you hadn't foreseen. The more you are situationally aware and context aware and personally aware, will enable you to have a better opportunity to be innovative and to be an effective service designer. I'm not recommending a whole formal process of analysis and so on, but I'm recommending at least an informal audit of this ecosystem to let you see how it may be that you can succeed and prevent the wheels coming off, as we sometimes say when you get into a project. Anyway, that's a quick counter through. I just wanted to mention very quickly, I just can't get this mouse working here, it's dreadful. I'll go the right direction now. Okay, I want to recommend this publication to you. It's on the Department of Finance Northern Ireland website under Innovation Lab. One of my colleagues, Tony Young, and myself in the Innovation Lab, along with others, we produced this booklet. It's full of just anecdotes and diagrams and so forth, which touch on what we've been talking about, but go a lot beyond that. And really, this is enabling a culture of innovation for improved public services. Very happy for you to get a copy of that off our website. In fact, if you want one, I can post one to you. And it's a nice publication, easy to read, and you'll get some good information in there about enabling innovation and getting it beyond ideas into implementation. And very quickly then, I just want to mention these three reports very quickly. These are old hat, but this report on the OECD report on Northern Ireland makes lovely reference to the Innovation Lab, of which we are all extremely proud, as a good example of the public sector enabling improved services. I also want to mention this publication here, also by the OECD, and there's a case study in there from the Innovation Lab. And then particularly, I want to mention this report in the middle here by Anna Witcher and Piotr, who's also, I saw his name on the list of people on the call this afternoon, so who authored this back in 2017, which is a great publication which gives us an assessment where we were in the lab at that point, and we've come a lot further than that, but a number of publications are worth a wee bit of a look. So that's me more or less finished. I'm still reversing and going in the wrong direction. That's me. That's my name, my email address, and we're also on Twitter. You can follow us there, and that's the website, and you can get access to those publications, or at least links to them on that. So I've taken a very quick canter through that. That's 40 minutes in. I think I've said enough, and if you're still awake, I'm happy to take questions, or you can shout at me if you don't agree with what I've said, because it's very much a personal view of the world that I've inhabited the past 7 years, and I think it all makes sense to me. So I'm happy to have your views and your challenges, etc. So thank you. And I will stop sharing. Stop sharing. There we are. And I've got one question here, which I'll take. And there's a lot of stuff in the chat here, which I'm now getting a look at. So we've got one from Jennifer. What strategies did you use to help support staff across the organization to be okay with uncertainty and change? Any tips to help us engage and coach others to dip their toe into innovation? Well, I think that a lot of that, I'm going to give a few immediate reaction to that, Jennifer. One is back to my point about people who are comfortable just with managing the world as status quo, or you're people who are naturally or more inclined to be the public entrepreneur. So it depends on where they are in that continuum. If they're in that space where they have ambition, they see need, they see room for change and improvement, well then it's going to be a lot easier to encourage them to do that. And it all goes down to the slide there on the organization and the culture that applies within it, and whether the senior leadership espouses and supports innovation and puts in place the processes to enable that, or you could have an organization that just wants to manage the status quo, or worse than all of either of those, or worse than that is the organization that espouses innovation, and then the real culture is we don't want to hear it. I mean, you go to your manager with an idea, it doesn't get taken up, because the reality is not the espoused culture, but the reality is the lived experience of staff. So there's a lot in there about leadership, about setting example, setting the tone, and backing that up by positively endorsing people who want to be innovative and giving them room and space in order to do that. And that's what the Innovation Lab's about, is that sort of neutral space that you can come to experiment. That was a very long answer to a simple question. Apologies. We'd love to hear what innovation you've been most proud of delivering. Well, we're currently working on a piece which is about to come to conclusion around the lived experience of Syrian refugees in Northern Ireland. We've done extensive research with those who have come to Northern Ireland in the past, and it's very timely. That report will produce soon. And it will be helpful, I fully expect, when it comes to the reception for bringing refugees from Afghanistan, and we can apply the learning from that into the processes and the systems put in place to support refugees. There's other projects we're very proud of. We did a piece for our pharmacy colleagues in the Department of Health, and as a result of that, we have pharmacy reviews carried out in pharmacies, where people can bring in their medication and get some advice on, not medical advice on it, but just on how do you manage these tablets, and just helping them to understand how you take them. And for example, someone may come in and say, well, I can't really swallow those, and then you get an alternative version. A long way of saying that in that instance, that the projected savings from introducing that sort of a review were very significant, so that helped with the medicines bill. We have a large portfolio of projects at the minute, and that's just a wee sample of them. So I have a question here from Adrian Moore to panelists and attendees. I'm thinking I'm reading the order of the name and then the question beneath it. Do you think it necessary to exit an ecosystem that doesn't seem fitted to innovation, or are there more ways to make change toward a more conducive environment? Well, my immediate reaction, I suppose it depends where you are in the system and the leadership that it has. And if there's room, if there's a chink of light, and there's an indication that if you were going to be able to stay, that you could open up that chink into a brighter beam of light, then you could help make that organization more innovative. But that really depends on the situation you're in and your understanding of it. Now, let's see, now got one anonymous. Although some parts of our organization are quite mature, I can see the benefits of you. Some elements are still very new and hesitant to the process. Rather than using the stick, I prefer to use the carrot method. I thought out whether you had any good case studies or examples from other situations. Alternatively, any tips and tricks that you might help? Absolutely, I agree with you. You can't force people into this. You never force leaders to be innovative. You've got to show them with the evidence, and it's starting small. It's about finding the leader in your ecosystem. Someone said to me, who has the glint in their eye, who's got the twinkle in their eye, who gets this, and it's finding them. And the more senior they are, the better. There may be a lone voice, but it's aligning yourself with them, and then start small and prove the value of this by simple, small projects. And the more, and it's a slow burn this, but I absolutely agree. You cannot make an organization innovative by writing a diktat, you can't generate innovation by writing a manual and circulating that to everybody. You're putting it on a web page. I don't believe that at all. I think innovation it's within people. It's about finding that and nurturing it and bringing it out as best you can. There we are now. I'm looking at a question here from Design GNV. How can service designers help organizational stakeholders, executives, middle managers to get a systems view, societal? Well, should that be the role of a service designer? I think that depends on how mature your organization is and whether you see that as important to you achieving success in your innovation. I think if you're energized and you're sold on what you're doing, then I would suggest that you might see those as things that you ought to do. If you're really ambitious, if you really are a deeply embedded public entrepreneur, then I think you're going to do your best to persuade the organization about these things. But again, I think it's about finding a senior leader with a glint in their eye who really gets this, who's really keen on it, and it's linking to them and finding ways you can support them in their business area and proving the value of it as we go. Oh, Tony, hello, Tony. There's Tony Young. Thanks, Malcolm. Yes, Tony Young is my co-writer of that documentation document called Beyond Ideas. Thanks, Tony. He and I and a number of other colleagues, we had a great time writing that, and I welcome you to invite you to access it on our webpage. Okay, there we are. So. I don't know what time we're 1:05. I didn't realize I would spend so much time talking, but there you are. Thanks to everybody who stayed awake, by the way. That's much appreciated. Okay. Any more thoughts? think I've maybe missed. I'll go back up here just have a quick scan. Where are we? Yeah, it's a question about us being in the Department of Finance. Well, we sort of asked this. I'm looking at Zoe Bierman, 1228. Why are we in the Department of Finance? I think we're there because the Minister of Finance decided he wanted an innovation lab, and it was just by dint of him being interested in sponsoring us. That's a good question. Maybe we should be an independent or semi-independent body, or maybe we should belong to maybe a more central department, I suppose equivalent to the Cabinet Office in London. But we are here in the Department of Finance because of the history and who sponsored us. Clash between the rules and the new messiness. Thank you. I like that, Jennifer Robertson. Yes, it is a new system, and it's the rules and the rigidity and the neatness of all of that and the new messiness. Good. And the immune response. Wonderful writings, by the way, from Rowan Conway and her collaborators in that. Also, can I mention Anna Witcher and Piot, who's on Swartek, who's on the call, who do a lot in the university, Cardiff Metropolitan University and PDR, and have been great supporters of us in the lab, and have great skills in design and service design, particularly, and in service design and policy development. I'm just clicking down here. Sorry, just looking for another question. Let's see, how are we doing? There we are. Thank you for all your comments, and good that some people were getting a point. I haven't seen anybody disagree with me. Maybe I'm quite happy to be to others. There's Piot. Hello, Piot. Good to see you. And I'm just coming down to the bottom here. Saying there's 3 new messages. Let me look at those. Nearly there. Where are we? Thank you. They're all thank yous. Okay. Okay. No more questions that I can see. Apologies if I missed anything. So. Okay.
Well, there are no more questions, so we'll wrap it up there. If anyone has any other questions for Malcolm, you can put them in the Slack channel. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them later on, and I will share the links that he mentioned and the articles into the Slack channel as well, so that everybody has access to them. Okay, cheers.
Thank you. Good. Thanks for your help. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.